Welcome to the Ball and Breakfast podcast. We're back post NFL draft. If you were with us on our last couple of episodes, we outlined, just past trades within the NFL draft. So just a history lesson for everybody out there and GMs alike. If you're, doing your due diligence, rolling up your sleeves and drafting, you can learn from some of those lessons in episode 1. The second episode we did was actually projecting where we thought players would go within the first round and talking about select teams. So if you haven't heard those episodes yet of this 3-part series, you can check us out anywhere. We're on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts. We're on YouTube for those that want to view us in video. Instagram is where we house the majority of our social media content. We're also live on Twitter as well. So if you like what you're hearing, any likes, any comments, any subscriptions are also helpful for us. We'd love to mix it up with you guys, further in the comments. So, keep bringing those comments in. We're enjoying them. But as part of this third part of this series, we're just going to kind of review, some winners and losers from this year's draft, any sort of glaring needs that are still left unmet by these teams, and then kind of looking at what's ahead for free agency and next season. So, with that, I'm just going to kick it over to Wayne to tell him, all of us who his first winner was in this year's draft.
Thanks, Pat. Yeah. Oh man, this was an entertaining draft, I'd say. I feel like, if I have a kid and everything, I'll be like, all right, you're going to be a wide receiver. I think that's the biggest takeaway out of all this. I think so. In terms of winners, though, I think there were 2 notable ones for me, but I'll go with the first one. It's got to be the Jets. I think they nailed it. And it's hard for anybody to say the Jets nailed the draft, but I think they nailed it. I think, Sauce Gardner, I was a big fan of, probably in my opinion, the best cornerback. I think he was the second, but yeah, second taken, but number 1 in my book in terms of overall cornerbacks in the draft. So I think, they got the number 1 cornerback, listed there. And then they also got the number 1, I think what a lot of people had number 1 wide receiver in Garrett Wilson. So, 2 number 1, number 2 players in their positions. And you're talking about wide receiver cornerbacks. So like those are like some of the top positions you want the top people on. So, those are playmaking positions. So I think they nailed it there. And then, trading up into the first round to get Jermaine Johnson, who a lot of people projected to him like top 15, nice edge rushers. So they really solidified their defense more so on there. And then adding in some tight end help with Rucker, Max Mitchell too. I think PFF has a good grade on him. Clemens too, good DE. So I think they just nailed it out of the ballpark. Oh yeah. And then also the running back, Breece Hall, who I think was also the number 1 running back too in the draft. So it's like, who, like, which did they have a bad pick? I don't know if they had a bad pick at all. I think they were all solid. Pat, what do you think about the Jets? Like, did they actually do good at this thing? I feel like they've shifted the tide here.
Yeah, unbelievable. That one was knocked right out of the park when I was watching the draft. I had Jermaine Johnson going number 7 overall. I think, perhaps that was a little bit, of an overestimation, but I think, reading some of the analyst reports and some of the mock drafts I saw, there was a lot of helium around, just his athletic ability and just, maybe his ability to just break out as a pro. So to kind of get him at the end of the first round when, like you were saying, most were projecting him inside top 15 at least. That's a steal in its own right. Not to mention you just get, home run hitters, I think, with Ahmad Gardner and then Garrett Wilson, like you're saying too. And in today's day and age, and I think you mentioned this on the last episode when we talked about running backs, you're getting a bona fide, probably a first 1 of 3 round fantasy, running backs, projections there with Breece Hall. So it's like you're bringing in some playmakers at some very important positions for Zach Wilson. Their GM has been catching, a lot of flack, going from last year to this year, just in terms of, reorganizing, that team, post, trading their safety, Jamal Adams, getting a bunch of draft capital, but, really, having to make smart selections here, working with, some of the capital, financially that he's gotten, going into this year. And honestly, kind of looking at what I had projected with a trade to the 49ers for potentially Deebo Samuel, I think this makes a lot more sense for them. I think their window to compete is still maybe a year or two more away than the other teams in their division, and maybe this is a great chance for them to just say, we're building an absolute foundation and culture of homegrown players that are going to be ours and only ours. We're not going to draft, or I guess trade, a handful of picks that we absolutely need, just to, put a Band-Aid on a bleeding wound. So I think with that, they just nailed it on all those marks, and they're hearing the praise so far.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like those points. And yeah, I think their whole thing is like, let's make it so that Zach Wilson can't actually fuck this up. I think that's the whole thing. Let's surround him with talent. Let's have a good defense. We have a defensive minded coach, so he can take care of that. Let's get him some weapons. Hopefully, was it the left tackle Mekhi Becton actually, isn't fat, completely fat, and can actually do all that. I think there's reports he was like 400 pounds or something like that this off season. So it's like, all right, let's get on that treadmill a little bit, So, but if they can, solidify that more so, get maybe get some more weapons in there, maybe some offensive lineman help just to make sure it's solidified. It's hard not to be like, hey, I want the Jets to actually do well, I think, so they do a lot of, they had a great draft, and yeah, I'm looking forward to what the rest of they're going to be doing, I think, in the off season. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's good that the Jets didn't jet, because I thought that they would jet at some point in this draft, and they seriously let it just come to them. I think that's one of the takeaway lessons I've learned from this draft specifically, because, with let's say a quarterback void in the first round kind of draft, it really made the team just stay focused on who are the best players out there.
Yeah,
let's not do anything super crazy. I mean, some did, but let's not overstep our bounds here on players that don't deserve to fall in these slots, and I think they won every slot that they were given.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I don't think they overdrafted. I think that's the whole thing. A lot of teams in the first round, there was that run, I think, with wide receivers, right? That they were just kind of going left and right. And then some teams were trading up and all. And it was like, wait, does this make sense for this person to be drafted at this position, especially for wideout? And, I guess this whole offseason got people a little panicked, with all the transactions at wideout. It's like, oh, we need to get our own guy and get him under team control and all, before he demands like $30 million or something like that. So, it's nuts. But I think, the Jets specifically just were like, you know what? Yeah, we're not going to overdraft. We're going to stick our ground. They traded up for Jimmy Johnson. It totally made sense there in the later first round. So, I think it was I think they hit the ball in the ballpark here. So yeah,
for sure. Did you want to close out with another winner?
Yeah, let me see. So my favorite draft team, my AFC team, the Ravens. It was my next winner there. Best safety, best, center. Granted, center maybe not the most glamorous position, but at the same time, I think Linderbaum, like a lot of people project he's going to be like, I don't know, a Hall of Famer, or he's like the best center prospect in like a decade or something like that. So, I think that's great. Hamilton, 6'4", 220, and then has large range for safety of his size. So, he's definitely a playmaker. A lot of people had him as like one of the top 5 prospects in this entire draft. It's just the devaluation of the safety position a little bit more so. But, for the Ravens, it's very much an important position. That secondary, holy cow, is awesome now. So, they don't have a weakness whatsoever in that secondary with Humphrey, now Marcus Williams, Marcus Peters, now Kyle Hamilton. So, and you have Chuck Clark as the backup now. So it's like, what are you going to go at him at? So, I think it was awesome. They ended a punter in the 4th round too. So they also got the top ranked, at least, draft wise punter there, instead of the punt god, which I think a lot of people were surprised. But Ariza, I think he went like 3rd, or he was like the 3rd or 4th punter. So, Maybe not totally out of this world, but fourth round punter, set that off. I think there were a couple punters, or the next punter was drafted, I think 3 spots afterwards. So, I think they played that well. Ojabo, he may not play this year, but he's I think a lot of people projected him top 15 pick in this draft. So it's like, and he knows Mike McDonald, the DC now, for the Ravens, like him and Owe. I think they were teammates. I think I read it or something like that, or some crazy thing like that. So he's very familiar with the people at the Ravens organization. That's an awesome pick, a great value. He's coming off an injury, but I think it was an Achilles during the combine. But hey, these days medical medical recovery is a lot faster and just a lot better overall, especially when you're young. So hoping he recovers, and if he can kind of get back to form, like that is a team. Him and Owe, they might want to add maybe another pass rusher just to make sure that Ajaba's void isn't completely missed for this season. But I think that's a good thing. That's a great draft pick in terms of value there. Falale too at right tackle, like holy cow, they get that monstrosity of a right tackle. I know they signed Moses and then also they have Ronnie Staley at left tackle. But the Ravens battled a lot of injuries both in the secondary and the offensive line. So I think this is just a good value in terms of depth provided there. And they also added some cornerback help too. The cornerback from Alabama, I think a lot of people projected him to maybe go up a little bit higher, which is highly rated. So overall, like I don't know if I can see necessarily a bad take on here in terms of the drafts. It was interesting to get a couple of tight ends as well. So I think for the Ravens, they're like, hey, everybody's paying their wideouts, $20 million, $30 million, like with Hollywood Brown and all. Like, let's go the other direction. Let's get some tight ends. They'll be a little bit frugal, but at the same time, we saw when Lamar Jackson had his MVP season, right? He utilized the tight ends a lot more, other than just Mark Andrews. Also utilized Hayden Hurst and Boyle too. So it's like, yeah, let's load up on tight end a little bit more. Let's let the wide receivers play out that we drafted the previous couple of years. Bateman's now probably going to be, his stock definitely went up in terms of fantasy value. So, got Duvernay approach. I think they're solid at wideout. I think they might add a veteran. I think is actually what I heard Harbaugh say. So, I think, in terms of the drafts, these guys know what they do. Eric DeCosta knows what he's doing. So, but yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think from what I've heard from the Ravens draft was each pick was just maximizing value with the pick. And, Kyle Hamilton going at safety at 14. I mean, a lot of people projected him to be maybe one of the best talents in the whole draft. And I think a lot of it was based on other teams' philosophies with safeties and thinking that, maybe it's not worth first round pick, depending on, what you value more, whether it's an edge or a wide receiver, something of the sort. So it's kind of like the Ravens are like, all right, you guys all want to punt on the best, maybe playmaker in this entire draft. We'll take them. We like those kind of guys. Same goes for their center. I mean, I thought that trade in itself was really well executed to, lock up your, future center who everybody was raving about. I mean, some were even dropping him, top 15 in their, mock drafts and such with Linderbaum. It's a nice way to kind of, use your first 2 rounds. But the only thing I'll say, and I think they got a lot of depth out of this draft, and obviously getting high marks all around, is I do think the loss of Marquise Brown. Now, I don't love Marquise Brown, the receiver. I don't think that he's somebody I would spend a first round draft pick for. But I guess when I look at it from the other end is, taking another weapon away from Lamar, taking away a weapon that he really liked too, just on a personal level, professional level, whatever it is. He's in a contract year. And to me, that sends a kind of a poor signal. Now, I know what you're saying, like you add up, the tight end, depth, and maybe that is how he traditionally has won there. The Ravens are notoriously good drafters. They're notoriously good at, playing it by the books and such. But but sometimes you got to calculate for, that X factor that could be a Lamar Jackson in a walk year. It got a lot of negative reactions on Twitter with angry faces and sad faces and stuff. And I think Lamar dropped a couple F-bombs on Twitter or something that, they're talking about censoring or what have you. But I guess it's the thing to me is it's not about Marquise Brown. It's just more or less like, what are you left with in your wide receiver, pool if you're the Ravens, and how does that make Lamar feel? And, I think this player empowerment era, it's steering a lot towards the quarterbacks. It's steering a lot towards the wide receivers. So it's kind of like, maybe they have to roll up their sleeves a little bit and go after a Jarvis Landry, or, if ODB can be, 3/4 the player he was last year, be healthy, toward the end of the year. It's something they just have to look at and say, isn't a conventional signing of ours, but it kind of a make Lamar happy type move. Because, there could be some future movement beyond that. And I don't know if they have a contingency plan if Lamar decides to walk.
Yeah, no, I think those are good points. I definitely don't think that they probably have a contingency plan for Lamar. I think they've kind of put all their eggs in their basket. Like, they literally have built the team around him and his skill set, right? So, and even their backups were like, kind of like lesser versions of him, if you will. I definitely see that. I think the Ravens, they always seem to be like, hey, everybody's going to go this way. We're going to go this way and kind of do it our own way and then win it this way, right? Like, they've always been that team. It's like, oh, we don't need to have a friend. Like, they won the Super Bowl with Trent Dilfer and Joe Flacco. It's like, hey, respectable players in their own rights, but they're definitely not like the Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady's of the world, right? So, I guess I respect that. It'll be interesting to see what they do in the offseason. I do like the Jarvis Landry. I think that could be a great acquisition for them if they can get that going. I think he makes sense there. But I mean, I remember when I was looking at Bateman, I think that was the receiver that I thought the Bears were going to draft before they traded up for Justin Fields. He was legit, and he's definitely not, I guess, an explosive home run threat like as a Hollywood Brown. But Duvernay can certainly do some of that, stretch the field some, and approach to a certain extent. But I definitely see them adding in somebody, maybe Will Fuller, if he's kind of like that deep threat. Maybe they add him. But I definitely see. I would definitely prefer if I were them to get Landry. I think that solidifies their team more so. And then having those tight ends to help block and catch too. I think is a good combination along with the offensive line. As long as everybody stays healthy. So, I don't know. We'll see. But I definitely like the way that the Ravens kind of like, we're not going to push it necessarily, but we're going to take the best available players within this draft, and then we're going to accommodate everything else, especially for the wide receiver side. So, and it is interesting because Lamar is negotiating on his own behalf, right? So.
I wouldn't advise it, but he's doing what he's got to do, I guess.
Yeah. Got to save that 5% or something like that, right? So but I think that's my take. What's your take? You have a winner?
My winner, you named one of them with the Jets. Definitely love what they did with all their picks. Mm-hmm. Love what the Eagles did. Just absolutely love what the Eagles did. You bypass this, is this going to be our next Jalen Reagor? Who are we going to draft at this wide receiver slot that we're desperately needing to fill? And you get in the first round, and basically without the extra third round pick, that the Cardinals gave up with Marquise Brown, you ended up landing AJ Brown with, first round pick. And I think 100 plus, overall choice. So it was kind of to me, a no-brainer. You sign a guy who's in his prime, 24 years old, a complete stud. I mean, he's just proven himself, 2, if not 3 years, straight with Tannehill and the Titans. You lock him up for a long-term deal at his age. And to me, that's going to be money. And, on top of that, you add 2 Georgia Bulldogs to your defense. You bring in, D-tackle Jordan Davis. You grab Nakobe Dean in the third round. they're also talking about Jurgens as a center. I mean, Jason Kelsey even came out and said, this is my replacement. Like, he's going to be my guy. I've been scouting, centers in this draft, and this is the guy I would pick to take over my slot. Like, that in itself, all that stuff alone for Howie and the boys, it's like, that's just a win for me. And to know that they have in the next 2 drafts, multiple firsts, it's scary what the Eagles are building. And, I alluded to this Lamar Jackson thing. Like, if I'm Lamar and I'm thinking about walking, and let's say Jalen Hurts doesn't have, an explosive season this year with, all of his new toys. I mean, that's a pretty hot destination for a quarterback to kind of fall right into. I don't want to project past this draft, but I would just say that, sometimes, we look at a team like the Saints, or we look at, even the Commanders in the sense, like, grabbing that first round pick and, thinking, okay, we've got, Chris Olave, or we got, the next Jahan Dotson. It's like, well, we got AJ Brown. It's like, well, game over. And I know you're going to spend your money and you could get the other guys for dirt cheap, but when this is like a bona fide number one, he's in his prime, he's 24, like, here's your money, dude, have your money. So that was my winner.
Yeah, no, that's a good take. Yeah. It's definitely like, okay, yeah, they traded it first, but they got a legit wide receiver. Now they have 2 really solid, like potentially all pro wide receivers, right? So with Devontae Smith as well, right? So I think it's great. It'll be interesting to see. I like your take about Lamar Jackson, right? Maybe he's gonna go a whole like Kevin Durant. He's like, oh, well, LeBron did that, so maybe I'll do that too. Maybe we'll go that route, win the Super Bowl like with Tom Brady. It's like, oh, Tom Brady jumped town, yeah, no loyalty, So yeah, and if I am a talented quarterback and I'm looking around, who's got draft capital, who's got cap space that we can utilize to sign free agents that I like, right? Yeah, again, he has no agent to keep him in check or anything like that. He's like, I'm just gonna do whatever I want. So if that's the case, good for Lamar. Then he holds a lot of cards there. Especially as you mentioned, like, oh, they got rid of my buddy too, and he was like, all WTF on Twitter. So no, I think that's a great take. Yeah, Nakobe Dean I think was a great pick. It'll be interesting to see if he can come. I think they were saying that, like, reports, like, as I was reading during the draft, it's like, oh yeah, he's hurt, he's injured. I was like, wait, when did this all come about? So yeah, I think it's a great value pick in terms of where he was projected. I think he was projected in the first and ended up in the third. So I think it was a great draft overall by the Eagles. And then we'll see what happens in free agency. But yeah, Jurgens, so it's like he's going to replace Kelsey. Like, that's a solid move. Again, centers, especially when you have a good quarterback, you want them to be solidified there. So I think that's a great pick overall. So yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely.
The only other thing I would add for the Eagles is they added 2 undrafted free agent quarterbacks in Carson Strong and EJ Perry. Those 2 were on a list that RG3 had put together for the best remaining quarterbacks after the 3rd round. So to me, that was pretty eye-opening. I think Sam Howell was on his list too, who ended up going the 5th round. But to kind of shore up some of the depth behind Jalen Hurts, Gardner Minshew, it's just, if Carson Strong can give you anything, from an upside perspective, or maybe EJ Perry, it's just kind of like icing on the cake to what was, phenomenal draft for the Eagles.
Yeah, for sure. I really like Carson Strong. I think in terms of a pure passer, he was probably like my favorite of the quarterbacks. Granted, he apparently has no legs, so but that Nevada team, I think, was one of the best offenses in all of college football, I think, this previous year, at least passing wise. So yeah, I definitely think that's a strong take with that, and I definitely see, like, yeah, he could possibly make a run at it if he's given an opportunity. So yeah. All right. Yeah. I think since we got the winners down, would love to go with the losers. So I want to hear, who are your losers, Pat?
Yeah, I think my first one, although they got a high score on their first pick in Charles Cross, I thought that the Seahawks, going to that 40-41 slot picks and just whiffing on quarterback. I know this is a down year for the quarterback in terms of evaluation, upside, whatever you want to call it. But, a lot of people have been, just raving about Malik Willis falling to the Titans in the third round. And, looking at the Seahawks, depth at quarterback, losing Russell Wilson, you're really going to put the faith into Drew Lock. You're going to put some faith into Geno Smith. It's like, who are you kidding? And, to kind of go at that pick and, take an edge rusher. I think Mafe got some pretty decent marks. I don't know if he's a game breaker, if he's game ready at this point, but then you kind of follow it up with Kenneth Walker III. I think that you're just running backs. For a team that's probably not going to compete. Is that really a need of yours? In the third round, in the second round, I should say. You've got Rashad Penny who flashed some brilliance last year. I think that. Chris Carson's been a guy who's around. I mean, I know injuries have banged him up over the years, but it seems like a guy like Pete Carroll doesn't need to reach on a running back, in my opinion. I mean, no matter how much of a bruiser Kenneth Walker can eventually be, it's just, to me, to just completely neglect that position. It's the most important position in football. And, you're either completely tanking this year and just saying, okay, what other needs do we have around, our field that we need to cover? But to kind of hit the running back there. And, I heard that they had some pretty decent cornerback picks in the 4th and 5th round that got, Kobe Bryant, not our beloved Laker there, but, cornerback out of Cincinnati, and then Tariq Woolen, the other cornerback. I think they got decent marks. It's just kind of, to me, bigger picture type stuff outside of the, exact selections round by round. But what do you think about that, Wayne?
I had them actually in my second tier of good quality drafts, actually. Yeah, I kind of like that. They're like, you know what? We don't like any of these quarterbacks, so why we're going to waste a pick? I think it was solid. Charles Cross is good, but my favorite pick out of all of them was probably Boye Mafe out of Minnesota. I think he was one of the most highly rated pass rushers by PFF. Kenneth Walker, sure, running backs are, kind of coming dime a dozen and all that. And that's fair. Granted, I think he's one of the better ones in this draft, right? So Abraham Lucas, probably one of the best right tackle prospects out there in terms of passing. So I think he could probably just start day one. So there. And then Pete Carroll just knows cornerback. So I definitely see Kobe Bryant and Tariq Woolen probably playing in this upcoming season. They got Tyreek Smith, who I think is an underrated pass rusher. So I think he could possibly do well, at least get some reps in there. And then Bo Hamilton is just a burner. So with that 4.3 speed. So, why not take that risk in the 7th round? So I definitely think that they were just like, yeah, to hell with running or to hell with quarterbacks. We're going to go Geno. We're going to go Drew Lock. And I kind of admire that, though. Again, I don't think anybody was sold on any of these quarterbacks. So it's like, why would we waste the pick? I think that's the honest opinion. And Pete Carroll is only getting older. I think he's 70, 71 or something. So I don't want to develop another quarterback. To hell with that. So go Geno. See what happens. Yeah,
I see what you're saying. I think, if they filled up some depth, with some players that obviously, received high enough ratings from PFF or, in Pete Carroll's brain. I think that, he's won a championship, so he has a right to, kind of maybe pass there. I'm still thinking this team is set up for, a top 5, draft choice next year. And maybe that's by design. Maybe they want a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud next year in the draft. if that's part of their planning, then hey, maybe I'll pull back a little bit on the reins here. But to me, I'm still I'm kind of grounded in the fact that it's just I think it kind of feels like a Bill Belichick thing to me and a Tom Brady thing. Like, hey, I established the winning culture here. It was the Legion of Boom who got all those, Super Bowl appearances and, won those divisions. It wasn't as much Russell Wilson. So now, I'm going to prove to the world that I can come out and, pick who I want. I'm going to completely avoid the position. I'm going to show the world like, hey, I've got the chops to get us back to the playoffs. And, if he can do it, all the more power to him. I just, I felt that was a little neglectful.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. If I guess it's like if they did take like, I don't know, a Sam Howell or something like that, would that change everything? Like, I don't know. I don't see it, right? So I think that's my thought process there. But I do like the point about Pete Carroll being like, you know, I kind of was part of that build this, like the Legion of like I was a defensive minded coach and all that. I'm a defensive back, you know, a former defensive back. So I know how to create an awesome secondary and a nice defensive culture. And, you know, yeah, I can get another Russell Wilson, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, maybe they are tanking, and maybe that is a different approach. I think to what they're doing. Hopefully they can keep, you know, Metcalf and Balaka because those guys are studs. But yeah, I think they're just like, none of these quarterbacks interest me. We're not forced to take any of them, and we're gonna stick with Geno and Drew Lock for this year at least and see what happens. So I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think they did well with the picks that they had, and kind of let the draft come to them, and I don't know, made the most of it. So I don't know, but we'll see how it pans out for them.
I think those are fair points.
Yeah, we got next.
I guess moving on to my second loser here. Sorry, man, it's our hometown Chicago Bears. I legitimately didn't think we were going to come to this. I mean, I think we are both really in on Ryan Poles as GM, and I'm not going to jump off the wagon yet. I mean, I don't think anyone should really overreact too harshly. I think that there was some fair critiques based on our needs, but you know, I like the Kyler Gordon pick. I think that, you know, getting a guy who can instantly slot in as your starting cornerback got really high reviews. Seems like the type that can help turn around the Bears secondary, and even Jaquan Brisker probably will be our, you know, starting strong safety, which is good too. It just kind of felt like from a lot of what the analysts were saying, just kind of knowing the Bears from, you know, being in Chicago all these years and kind of seeing the teams we've built, is that, you know, Justin Fields kind of got left hanging a little bit with, you know, depth at the line position, and then just also in the wide receiver room. It's just, you know, besides Mooney, you know, trusting some of these 1-year signings, it's like we just need to make sure that he stays healthy this entire year and is kept upright, and, you know, maybe can build some rapport relationships with guys he's passing the ball to. It's just, you know, felt a little underwhelming with the Velus Jones selection. I heard 25 years old, maybe the oldest player at the position in the draft. You know, they weren't just really high on his upside, or, you know, thinking that was the right pick there. Outside of that, I mean, I don't know. Just looking down the rest of the draft board for the Bears, it's, you know, grabbing a couple linemen, you know, later toward the end of the draft. I don't really think any of them really stood out in terms of, you know, ratings, reviews, or guys that are going to slot in as starters at right tackle or anything like that. It seems like they're all fighting for, you know, depth positions at that point. But did you hear anything differently? Do you think that any of these guys, you know, throughout our draft have more potential than I'm forecasting them, or the analysts are?
Yeah, the only one. So I like that take, because and I agree. Like, I don't think they did enough to help Justin Fields here. Like, I simply don't. I honestly think, and I've been reading Bears Twitter, we're not hard enough on, like, we need to realize, like, we need to be reaching for the stars when it comes to modern day offenses, even like more so, you know, like a team like the Ravens. Like, I think we're so dumb, or we're so I don't know. We just don't know what a good offense looks like for the hometown Bears. So we're not as hard on it's like, okay, our best quarterback of all time is Jay Cutler. It's like, great. We're not that hard on our offense and how we can generate that. So yeah, I was underwhelmed on offense. I think Kyler Jones and Brisker makes sense. I'll give it to that. Great value picks. Those are day one starters, and, you know, great contributors for defense. But obviously it's like, we're investing. We drafted a very talented rookie quarterback. We didn't make any splashes in free agency. You know, we added like maybe more depth type of offensive lineman more so. Velus Jones, did not like the pick at all. I was actually much more about I think Khalil Shakir. I think he fits kind of what we were looking for more so. Granted, I think he doesn't have the biggest arms, but I'm like, you know, that's why you got to throw the ball to him. But Velus Jones, I think I heard rumors like what Justin Fields says, oh, I want him to play on my team. I'm like, yeah, but he's not thinking about, he's 25 years old. Like, this is probably as good as he's going to be, do you really honestly believe Velus Jones is going to come in at 25 and just like all of a sudden getting 1,000 yards and like running for 300 yards rushing or something like that? You know, if they're going to use him on like jet sweeps and stuff like that. I don't think so. So I don't like the pick. I think they maybe took that Justin Fields saying, be like, oh, let's draft him in the third round. They could have picked him in, you know, 5th or 6th, I think. Even if they didn't, who cares? Like, you can get another, I don't know. I feel like you could have got Bo Melton or something like that, right? If that was the case, I think he went in like 6th or 5th. The best pick in the later rounds, I would say, Dominique Robinson is okay. You know, I know he's athletic and all that, but he's so raw, like so raw. Like the guy was playing wide receiver and all that, so raw. But I will say Braxton Jones, like I was a big fan of him. I was one of those sickos that watched the Senior Bowl, and then apparently they watched the Senior Bowl, and they're like, this guy like was going against first rounders and all that, and was holding up on his own. I know he's from South Utah, FCS and all that, but he looked really good in the Senior Bowl. So I think they fell in love with him. I liked him. I kind of hoped that the Bears drafted him in the 5th round, which they did here. So I don't mind that. But to your point, like the rest, I mean, hopefully one of them pans out. I just don't see it. And then I don't know. Like I just think, again, we are so we just don't know what a good offense looks like. Like we need to have higher standards. Like look around, watch the NFL. Like this is your rookie quarterback. He's only got a couple years on his rookie contract. Like, are we really going to put everything into next year? I know we have like $100 million in cap next year, but like, are we really going to be putting everything there? Because he may not make it. He may lose his confidence this year. Like a lot can happen this year, and there's just not enough support. So, you know, I don't know what else we can do in free agency. Like, are we going to get a Julio Jones, or are we going to get Alec Hearns, like in wide out? Like, I don't know what other tackles or offensive linemen that are out there that we can put in there. Like, I don't see anything really. So, to your point, yeah, it's hard to feel, I guess, completely optimistic. So, but you know, that maybe this is like the whole Cleveland Indians or whatever it was back in that Major League movie and everything. It's like we're just gonna get like a 25-year-old rookie wide receiver and a bunch of other people from everywhere, and maybe they will mesh or whatever. So I want to be optimistic, but man, I was thinking about putting them here, and I was like, you know what, maybe not. We can talk about them, but I'm on your boat with regards to this. So
okay, yeah, I'd like to think that Ryan Poles and this crew understands the legacy and history that this Bears, offense has left behind it. And they thought he would be smarter about the construction, knowing that like, okay, after round 2, we're really going to be, maybe left with some really limited options at wide receiver, no tackle. And he just probably would have known that. And maybe the guys he took, he just felt faith in terms of, what he saw, just cornerback safety, and just knowing, okay, I know I'm going to bank on these 2 picks, and I just don't want to, stretch it a little bit too much if I'm not, super confident about, one of these wide receivers like a Sky Moore or George Pickens with an injury, concern or something like that. So it's like, I really don't know what was going through his head the whole day, but I'm not gonna bury them just yet. I'd love to see, what more they have left in the tank in the offseason next year. And yeah, I just, as a Bears fan, it's just hard to kind of walk Fields out there and just, with what he's got surrounding him right now, it's just it's looking like it's going to be a pretty ugly season.
Yeah, I know. Like, I feel it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be like a Daniel Jones type of situation. Then if that's the case, it's like, are we really going to wait till like year 3 to develop them? Like, do we not know how to develop quarterbacks? Well, apparently we don't. So it's like to Ryan Poles' defense though. It's I think I was hearing somebody talk about it. I think it might have been on the Ringer podcast, but they were just like, Ryan Poles is trying to do the best with what he had. Ryan Pace mortgaged the future, right, for Justin Fields, kind of going all YOLO there because, he knew his job was on the line. Great. We got Justin Fields. We got this talent that, a lot of people are like, oh, we see the talent there. And we think he can project well to the NFL. But right now it's like, there's so many holes within the offense and defense, but it looks like we fixed up the secondary some, signed some free agents, but like you got to make a little bit of a splash. I think Poles might be a little too conservative in terms of, I don't know, cap spend and all that. Like the draft, I get it. Hey, let's trade back. I think they were probably gunning for Kinnard in the 5th round, and I think that's where they're just like, let's just get as many picks as we can after this, because we were kind of gunning for him, but didn't end up with him, because he definitely could have fit in right guard, I think, and just kind of maul over there. So yeah, it's kind of just unfortunate. Poles is trying to, I guess, make the best of what he has, but there's got to be a time where it's like, I got to make a move. I got to do something that's like, okay, we're setting Justin Fields up for success. And I don't know, it's hard to like be like, oh yeah, they're definitely doing that right now. So
yeah, not in my opinion, not in yours. Did you have any other losers for teams, in the draft?
Yeah, I mean, Patriots. Bill Belichick, hell of a coach, but good God, what was he doing? I like how McVay, if you saw that video, was like, wait, like I think they were thinking, man, he must have been drinking and stuff like that. He's like, well, we're gonna pick him in the 3rd round or whatever. But yeah, Strange was definitely a reach. Get him in the 2nd round at least. Like, I don't know. They definitely could have done more elsewhere with regards to that, but a lot of people were high on Strange, so maybe we're the fools, but yeah, he can definitely be a starter, but they definitely could have waited or traded back with regards to that. But and I don't know, the rest of the picks they drafted Zappy in the 4th, so it's like you got a quarterback too, the backup quarterback. So I mean they do this a lot, right? Just like, oh, let's draft a quarterback and see what happens. Maybe he shows up in training camp or preseason, just like, oh, maybe we can trade him for like, I don't know, a 2nd or 3rd round or something like that, right? But I didn't see too much in Zappy. I think I saw a little bit in the Senior Bowl, didn't do too much. Saw him in the combine, didn't do too much, but he passed for like 5,000 yards, so must have been doing something right. 2 running backs too, when they have 2 running backs of their own that were like, oh yeah, they're good. They drafted again, like, so that now their room is full of 4 running backs. So it's like, okay, we're just not going to let Mac Jones pass apparently and utilize these people. So I don't know. I don't understand. But I'm not a Hall of Fame coach, so I guess I can't say, but I just don't get the draft. So yeah.
Yeah, I think they got that, was it Tyquan Thornton? At like one of the highest 40 times. I think Mel Kiper had him outside of his top 25 receivers and stuff too. So that's like an extra, toss in there. But yeah, it seemed kind of strange. I mean, I agree with the analysis in the sense that almost every pick that they made early on was kind of laughed at and mocked and ridiculed by analysts and stuff. So I was kind of like, okay, I'm gonna have to dig in a little bit and figure out like what really, happened there with the Patriots. But it's just really hard to bet against Bill Belichick, his mindset, what he looks for in players, how he possibly could just train these guys to be what he wants, or, sees, whether it's just some intelligence or in-game, instincts, or, just raw ability, how he can convert them into stars. And I do think, all that being said, you do make a good point about where you actually draft these players based on what their value is, because, maybe you could have got a Cole Strange in the 2nd round. You could have, got somebody who was a clear, bona fide 1st rounder instead, in round 1, or, grab Thornton in the 3rd or 4th, and then, fill in that 2nd round pick with somebody who's just more of a standout. Maybe it's the Cole Strange pick there, but if you were to do any of the Patriots picks over again based on the board, or, what you think the Patriots may need, do you think there was, better use of that, selection, maybe in the 1st or 2nd round? I don't know, that you think, possibly Bill Belichick could have, molded into a Patriot in the way that he does, or it just would have been a more sensible choice in those early slots.
Yeah, but then I think that then the Bears wouldn't get their cornerback. I think that's who they probably ought to have taken. I know that the Patriots took the 2 Joneses, right, and I think it was like the 3rd or 4th round picks, Marcus Jones and then Jack Jones. So I think they were looking at corner. I think they probably could have picked Maybe Kyler Gordon or Booth, Ahmed Booth from Clemson there. So I think they could have gotten them, and then maybe Taekwon, maybe not take him there, maybe take the Cole Strange there in the second round. So that's what I probably would take. But it's hard in this day and age to draft also two running backs and think that this is a good draft. Like I don't know. Belichick, I think I heard something about Belichick that the Patriots, how they draft is different in that they have like a list of just 50 or 100 guys or something like that, and then they're like, we're going to take these people and we're going to figure out who we're just going to take these people and we're not going to look at 300 or 400 people. We're just going to focus on these people and that's it. So that might have been it. That might have been why they took two running backs in this draft and we're like, we're just going to go with these people. So if that's true, that's interesting. But yeah.
Yeah. Not unlike Belichick to have 3 or 4 running backs in his back pocket, though. It almost seems like every year, if you're looking at the depth chart or you're just trying to figure out like what to make of the Patriots backfield, you're always like, okay, is James White back around this year? And, do they still have Ramondre Stevenson and all these other guys? It's Brandon Bolden's. It's like, he just loves maybe a guy who can play special teams, running back, a little punt return, kick return, whatever else he may need. I don't know why it like seems to stem from the running back position, but he seems to view them a little bit differently than a guy like Pete Carroll, who's willing to throw top picks at him. So it's a little confounding, but he's been that his entire career. But a stinker of a draft, like sure, I think it's like just know how to develop like gamers like in a way that most teams don't, and even if some of these picks get eyebrows raised at him, I think like at the end of the day that guy's been and that organization's been really good at developing players, but maybe they overstepped their bounds here a little bit.
I mean maybe they did, but they'll probably win the Super Bowl next year. I don't know, so we'll see. If they did, great. Strange and Taekwon. Granted, when was the last time the Patriots drafted a good wide receiver, right? It feels like they just don't. They like, unless it's like a late round, Edelman or something like that, right? I think they drafted. But other than that, like it always seems like, at least in recent years, they've been like when N'Keal Harry, was it Jacoby Meyer, like, not like game changers, right? So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, it'll be interesting if any of these people pan out. But I mean, Strange will probably be a starter for sure. The rest, it's like, where exactly are they going to fit? But I don't know. Marcus Jones seems like he's pretty good, small, but very, a game changer, makes a lot of plays. So yeah, hopefully I would give the benefit of the doubt to Belichick in terms of developing good talent on defense. So I think they'll be solid there. So yeah.
That sounds good. Are there any other teams, I guess, moving into the offseason next season that just have maybe some glaring needs or, things you thought about post-draft about where, a certain team may be heading going into the year, any like sleepers or just teams that have some obvious needs that were, not addressed in this draft?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Ravens are going to win the Super Bowl, and I just said the Patriots were. I think, in terms of sleepers, I don't know if it's being talked enough, but the Chargers are killing this offseason. Like they just are. Like they've completely revamped their defense. They have like all pros basically on all levels. I think they're having like the best. To me, I think they're having the best offseason in terms of re-signing free agents and then retooling with free agents, drafts. And all that. So I just feel like they're kind of winning everything. They got Khalil Mack, who is hopefully going to be healthy, opposite Bosa. They re-signed their wide receivers or with Mike Williams, again, to pair up with Keenan. So it's like they're gearing up. So I'm very excited to see what they're going to do. I think they'll probably build off of what happened, I guess, last season, getting some playoff experience there. So yeah, I'm excited for them to see if they progress, if Justin Herbert's going to take things to the next level, and then if the defense can show up and provide some stoppage to get Herbert more touches, So I'm very excited to think about if I'm a Chargers fan. But yeah, are there any teams that you're like, oh yeah, they're a lot better, I think, set off right now?
Yeah, and I think on my end, I would say the Kansas City Chiefs. Very interested to see what they did with Tyreek Hill. I mean, you trade off your most dynamic playmaker, perhaps in your team's history. You still got Travis Kelce around, but then bringing in Juju Smith-Schuster, MVS, it's kind of going to lead to a different look for that team. I mean, I think that's a pretty decent receiving core of those three. And then you got the 2 picks in the first round. Looks like they took a corner in Trent McDuffie, George Karlaftis at the end. And also moving to the second round, they picked up Sky Moore, who I had projected at number 30 in the first round. They happened to pick him there, but just felt like it was a good fit. I mean, he almost kind of fits the mold of a Tyreek Hill. Won't say they don't deliver the same kind of explosiveness or upside that he may have, but in the same sense, it's like they kind of realized that the writing was on the wall after last year. I think we even touched on this in our last episode, but kind of being embarrassed on the defensive end by the Bills, kind of just being picked apart. It was an area that they definitely needed to focus on. Secondary, really all across the the defensive side. And Leo Chanel, I've heard his name pop up a bit. Coming in at linebackers, so just adding a little bit more depth to their core there. This is kind of I don't want to say a make or break year, but it'll really be telling which direction that franchise is going, because they've had such a really nice reign. And like you're saying with the Chargers, I mean, I've definitely seen, the signings of, in the quarterback with JC Jackson and, as well with Khalil Mack, like you're saying, it's just, a team that already had all the offensive prowess I think it needs, kind of excel at the next level. But you've also had, Russell Wilson, the Broncos, Derek Carr, getting Devontae Adams in, Las Vegas. It's just, that whole division is going to kind of be fun to watch and just up in the air in general. But, this is just the Chiefs moving into the next chapter. I just want to see, what is that actually going to look like?
Yeah. It's like an arms race. Like I was chatting with one of my Las Vegas Raiders friends, and it's like, we're seeing like, the Raiders are getting interior defensive linemen, so therefore the Chiefs are going to get Kennard in the draft, or like it's nuts. Like, this is the level I want the Bears to be operating on. And I obviously, hey, it's early in the polls era and all that, but I agree with the Chiefs. I think that they are they're positioning themselves. I think they made the right moves. I think Sky Moore, great. He's not going to be your Tyreek Hill year one and all that, but I definitely, a lot of people projected him as a first rounder and like kind of like a Steve Smith. So if he can reach that, that level, like that's a game changer. Still have Nicole Hardman, stretch the field too with some of that speed, and Juju Smith-Schuster and Kelce are still weapons there, and they loaded up on their secondary, so I think they're better off there. Hopefully Thornhill isn't a safety anymore for them, or starting at least. I think good backup special teamer, but he's not a good starting safety there, and I'm glad that they got Brian Cook and. Drafted 3 corners, good sized corners there. So definitely they were like, let's make a couple of changes here. So very good offseason so far, I think, for the Chiefs.
Definitely. Do you have any parting thoughts as we kind of wrap up this 3-part series?
I mean, it'll be interesting what happens, I think, going into next year. But I mean, as a Bears fan, I'm like, how about those Ravens? Not so bad. They had a great offseason. It'll be interesting what happens, but I don't know. I like it. It'll be fun. I think the Ravens are going to be good. I think the Chiefs are going to be good, and I think the Chargers, the team to watch, I think, coming into next season. So, but what about you?
Yeah, at least for me, I would say the Green Bay Packers is my final thought, and just how they're going to lock up the NFC North again. Moving into next year. If you're looking at the first round and the picks they had and what they kind of needed, what was speculated, was getting kind of nervous for their fan base, just kind of seeing the 2 defensive choices. I mean, Wyatt and Kawhi Walker, I mean, both had pretty high marks and filled needs for them on the defensive side of the ball. It's just kind of, nervous for, what would come if Rodgers was left with no, receiver in the draft. And in the very next round, they ended up trading with a division rival, I believe it was the Minnesota Vikings, who, were able to kind of move down and, hand Christian Watson over to the Packers, who potentially could just be an amazing, deep threat weapon for a guy like Aaron Rodgers and somebody they'll mold into the next Packers receiver, star. So I totally see that happening. And just kind of scratching my head with what the rest of the NFC North, ended up doing with their own drafts in general, and kind of conceding, to each other and to the Packers. And it's just kind of funny because for Rodgers, he's probably a little bit nervous. Like, I'm really gonna have to grind out this year to, bring my team back to the playoffs and, work our way through the first round. Now it's like they probably were just gifted a first round bye or something of the sort. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think the Packers will be interesting. Christian Watson would have loved to for him to drop to the Bears and all that, but quite a talent. And the Packers always seem to pull out, with the second round wide receivers, never a first, but always the second round wide receivers performing pretty well for them. So I think they had a decent draft overall, but hopefully, I don't know, they all suck, but I don't. It's hard to say. Hopefully, it takes a little bit longer for Christian Watson to jump into that role of like the Devontae Adams in there, but I just don't see that happening. I think they'll succeed pretty well. Watson seems like quite a talent, especially on the long ball and the deep ball, which I know Rodgers is really good at. So, yeah, we'll see. But hopefully, love to be wrong, I think, in this situation, but it's hard to kind of go against Rodgers and all that. So, yeah.
Definitely. Well, I think that's a wrap for this episode. Check us out on the outlets that we're on for podcasts and for social media. If you have any, teams that you thought stood out this year in the draft, please let us know, who you enjoyed watching, or if you saw a big blunder pick or trade that transpired, over the weekend, let us know too in the comments. We're happy to engage with you guys, and, keep an eye out for us. I think, we may transition to another sport or another, set of topics here for our next round, but, really appreciated doing the NFL draft coverage this year.
Awesome. Thank you all.